I said, Mother dear, what did you think of Vanport? And she says, Eddie, she says, when we first moved into Vanport, she said her first reaction was that she cried. Because number one, in Birmingham, we had our own home and we had our own backyard and front yard because she had just never seen that many people together in her life. My dad, along with a couple of other friends in Birmingham, they came out here in 1942 to work in the Kaiser shipyards, and then the family, we all followed in 1944. Henry J. Kaiser, the industrialist, when they opened the shipyards up, he needed lots of workers. They took these special trains, they were called the Henry J. Kaiser Special. They went all over the country picking up people, offering them a train ride out to the West Coast. And they came by the hundreds and thousands. But the thing is that there was no housing for them. They had redlining here in Portland, and there was just the Albina neighborhood was where most of the blacks lived. There was just no place to live. The only place where blacks could stay was in Giles Lake and Vanport. Vanport included schools, it included a post office, 3 large shopping centers, which had variety store and drugstore. It also included daycare centers there and a 24-hour nursery. Kaiser built a small hospital in Vanport. There was a jail, small jail, police department, and there was 4 large parks and 1 large athletic field. The northern boundary of Vanport really sort of followed Marine Drive. The eastern boundary would be present-day I-5, and the southern boundary of Vanport was the Columbia Slough. And then the western boundary of Vanport was the railroad. And that railroad area, it was a large berm dike area where that really broke the cause of flood. You would see trains coming from out of the north, and they would be military trains. Every now and then, the train would stop, and people would go up to greet the soldiers and say hello to them and good luck to them. Several times there would be trains full of just African American soldiers because the white soldiers were in their own car and the black soldiers. And that was really so very exciting for the African American community because that was where the largest percentage of African Americans were living was in Vanport at that time. It brought the war very close to you, though there were no bullets being fired, but you had a sense that these young men, and mostly they were young men, were going somewhere. A bit of excitement in it also. It really was a 24-hour city at the height of the war because those trucks would come through with they were cattle, like a cattle truck. And they would come through 3 times every day except for Sunday to pick up the workers. And people were really making good money at the shipyards. And for the kids, we also use our wagons to go up to the store and bring people's grocery home. And they would always give you a quarter or 15 cents. And there was always sounds, you know. I remember when people would be sleeping during the day, a lot of times they would turn their radio on, and you sort of got used to hearing the theme songs from all the soap operas. After the war ended, a lot of people left Vanport and they went back home. The population of Vanport on the day of the flood was about 18,300 people, and I think the African American population was probably maybe a good 20%. The morning of May 30th, 1948, when we woke up that morning, they were building dikes and they were sandbagging and there was conversation about will it hold, will it not. My mother and a very good friend of hers, Mrs. Sylvia, decided they would go up and see the river. And myself and a couple of my other brothers, we went up with them. And we were not too far from the river. A policeman came by on a motorcycle, and he said, well, you folks better get out of Vanport. He said, the dike has started breaking, and this place will be on the water probably about 30 or 40 minutes. And so we hurried back home, and my mother got a small suitcase, and and put a change of underclothes in there for all of us kids, and grabbed a few important papers and a few pictures, and we got in a neighbor's car and we drove up to what is now I-5. I remember being up there, you could see people streaming out of Vanport, coming up the hill, you know, mostly with their suitcases, and some kids with their bikes. And someone said, well, you know, we'll go back. Tomorrow morning, you know, as soon as that water go down, we get our brooms and we'll just go down and sweep everything out. And we'll just go right on back home. And then shortly thereafter, I saw a second wave. And I remember looking out to the west toward the railroad tracks. I saw this huge wave of water. And it hit those units and it took them up off the ground just like you would throw toy cars around. And so at that point, I think people realized that we weren't going back. There's not going to be any sweeping out. And I often wondered why there was that attitude, we'll be going back. People wanted to go back because that was their home. That was all they had. They didn't have houses in Albina. They didn't have houses in Portland. Their home was in Vanport. And so that evening, as things, when it started filling up, everybody knew that it was over.